the Bay Area's most complete nighttime television report with the award-winning Channel 2 news team and late satellite coverage from around the world.
Good evening, I'm Claude Mann.
And I'm Elaine Corral.
Britain and Argentina are at war tonight, and observers say a land invasion of the Falkland Islands by British Marines now appears imminent. The outbreak of a full-fledged war in the windswept South Atlantic came shortly before dawn this morning as waves of British bombers screaming in at low levels attacked the two airstrips on the island, including the critical air base at Port Stanley, the only lifeline to the 9,000 Argentine troops occupying the disputed island. Mark Phillips has more on the story.
The British have not released pictures of the actual raid, but they have said Vulcan bombers like these made up the first wave. They took off from Ascension Island about 4,000 kilometers away and flew non-stop to the Falklands, refueling en route. The Vulcans have recently been converted from their nuclear bomber role to carry conventional weapons. They arrived at about 4:40 this morning Falklands time, likely working from high altitudes and leaving about 30 craters on the runways at the Port Stanley and Goose Green airfields. The Harriers seen here practicing bombing runs as the fleet headed south arrived at the Falklands at 8:20 in the morning. The British say they hit the airfields and planes on the ground. Throughout the day in London, the British Defense Ministry had been supplying sketchy information on the raids and refuting Argentine claims that there had been British casualties.
All aircraft and personnel involved have now returned. There are no casualties.
The British said the raids were successful, that runways and aircraft were hit. They also challenged the statements from Buenos Aires that there had been an Argentine counterattack.
And now I wonder if I could refer to statements that I've seen on various tapes that Argentine planes have launched offensive operations against British ships. I think I can only say we have no reports of such an engagement.
The information on the raids came as Francis Pym was leaving for Washington and New York to pursue whatever diplomatic options may be left. In Britain, the raids are seen as strengthening his hand and demonstrating once again that if the diplomacy fails completely, the military threat is real. There was no proof offered in London today to support the British version of events, but in making their announcement today, British Defense Department spokesmen were at pains to point out that they were taking their time to collect all the evidence in the interest of accuracy. The British are counting on the world believing their story as they relentlessly increase the military pressure in the step-by-step way that's been the strategy from the beginning. Mark Phillips, CBC News, London.
Argentina still claims it downed at least 2, possibly 4 of the British jets, killing one pilot, capturing another. The British still deny any losses. They have, however, confirmed that Argentine jets did attack the British fleet, hitting at least one frigate, but they say it was not seriously damaged. And Argentina tonight confirmed that 2 of their attacking planes were downed and another damaged in that attack.
For the latest on the war between Britain and Argentina, we have Jerry Smith on the phone. She's a reporter for United Press International. She is in Buenos Aires, where it is now 2 in the morning. Hello, Jerry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Can you tell us what the situation is right now?
The situation now is, it's still very active here tonight. It's 2 in the morning, but there's still government communiques coming out claiming that the British did make 5 attacks on the island and that the Argentines did manage to shoot down 5 British planes and cripple at least 1 ship. It's hard to know which side to believe, but the Argentines are quite firm in their belief that they did down these planes and cripple that ship.
Can you speculate at all? Because that seems to be the big story today, where Britain says one thing, Argentina says the other. One side claims casualties, the other not. Can you speculate at all what your point of view is? What do you think the story is?
It's very difficult to say, because even though we are down here in Buenos Aires, we are still almost 500 miles away from the islands, and no one is allowed near. But Argentines themselves are very convinced that, especially in the United States, which has decided to support Great Britain, the news is being quite biased toward Great Britain, and that they are very likely to believe the British version rather than the Argentine version. And I think that's why the Argentines have been so careful to make all these statements in the Argentine embassy in Washington, to make sure that the news of what they believe is happening gets to the United States.
One quick question, Jerry. The Britons, if they do land on the island, is there any speculation on what Argentina will do?
Excuse me, I couldn't hear you.
If Britain does land on the islands, is there any speculation what Argentina will do?
The Argentines really do not believe that the British will ever set foot on the islands because they believe that now they've taken them, they just are not, they're going to defend them until the end, and even if it means a lot of death. However, if they do land on the island, I think the Argentines feel that they are more prepared to fight than incoming forces who have been on aircraft carriers and possibly seasick for a week would be.
I thank you very much, Jerry. Bye-bye. That was Jerry Smith. She is a reporter for UPI in Buenos Aires. Argentine President Leopoldo Galtieri denounced the British attack as a violation of United Nations policy, and he ordered Foreign Minister Costa Mendez to return to New York to denounce the attack at the UN. Costa Mendez had arrived in Buenos Aires this morning shortly after the British raid. He said there would be a double response, diplomatic and military. Costa Mendez also lashed out at the U.S., saying he was surprised by the Reagan administration's decision to back Britain. He said the decision will impair U.S. policy in Latin America for years to come. In Buenos Aires, there were reports of new anti-American feelings and threats. Several U.S. executives doing business there say they've tightened security. Other companies are reportedly getting ready to evacuate their American employees from Argentina.
In Washington, the Falklands crisis was left largely in the hands of Secretary of State Alexander Haig. President Reagan headed for Tennessee to open the 1982 World's Fair. Dave Browdy has more on the story.
They didn't wake the president to tell him of the British attack, and when he met with reporters before leaving for Tennessee, President Reagan thought the Argentine foreign minister was still in New York. The British attacks and the departure of Foreign Minister Costa Mendez for Buenos Aires came as a surprise, said the president, who even in Tennessee insisted a peaceful settlement is still possible.
There have been no casualties, and we're still hoping for a peaceful settlement. Officially opening the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville, the president once again attacked congressional Democrats on the budget. He also remarked on the fair's theme, energy turns the world. The president said decontrol is the ultimate solution to America's energy problems. The president had very little to say about the Falklands. He did tell reporters he believes the fighting will not mean all-out war. Shortly after the British attack this morning, Japan announced economic sanctions against Argentina, but there was also support for Argentina as the British flag was burned by demonstrators in Venezuela. Thousands of protesters chanted anti-British slogans in Spain, and the government there branded the British offensive as an historic error. So far, Spain is the only Western European nation to condemn the British attack, but Germany's Chancellor Helmut Schmidt reportedly considers the move to be a very serious mistake. Officially, the German government has called for a renewed effort to end the hostilities.
Still to come on the 10 o'clock news, a worker at Lawrence Livermore Laboratory comes down with Legionnaire's disease, and other workers there are warned to be on the alert for symptoms. And a spectacular volcanic eruption on the island of Hawaii. Red-hot lava is flowing down the mountainside.
Look for the wagon, J.L. Craft's wagon, the horse and wagon with its natural cheese.
When the Kraft wagon is in sight, you know something special is inside. Kraft natural cheddars and Colbys, rich, golden, fresh, as if J.L. Kraft had delivered them himself.
Look for the wagon, the Kraft cheese wagon.
When the Kraft wagon is in sight, you know something special's inside.
Gasoline prices are coming down dramatically. To lower them even more, ARCO has done something no other major oil company has done. We've gotten rid of our credit cards. And the $73 million we're saving in credit card costs, we're passing on to our dealers in the form of even lower gas prices. So for top quality gasoline, go to an ARCO station and compare ARCO prices.
From the land of sky blue water, from the land of pines, lovely blossoms, come very
You can't beat the bear for fun or Hans for great taste. I guess that's why Hans is growing so fast. And for you light beer drinkers, there's Hans Special Light.
For all of you who think there's only one Washington monument,
This year, come to Washington State and see our monuments. Just give us a week, and we'll give you the time of your life. This year, see America's other Washington, the state. Call toll-free for information.